Good evening, everyone, and to all of our attendees from all over the world. Welcome to another session here at AMN Healthcare International. We are going to be discussing today the IELTS and the TOEFL exams. For those who have dreams of going to the US, these are two of the exams that are accepted for your CGFNS and your US visa screen. So, just in case you would want to share this with your friends and family, that's going to be very helpful, especially also if they have plans of going abroad, just like you guys. And today I'll be talking about the IELTS side, whereas Sir Lone right here from Niner QC is going to talk about the TOEFL side of um, the discussion. Okay. All right, so let's get started. First, we would like to introduce to you the two exams that are kind of popular already when you are a nurse planning to go to the US, which are IELTS and the TOEFL. And we have several parameters here that we're going to be comparing the two exams against. And the first one that we have right here is the test format. So IELTS is perhaps one of the most popular English exams in the world, but one of the problems when you're taking this examination is you have to take the right module because if you take the wrong module, you'll not be able to pursue your application or your test results will be automatically disregarded. So you have to take the right module. IELTS has plenty of these. We have the academic module, the general training module, the IELTS life skills, and the IELTS UKVI. So you have to figure out which examination you would want to take for your overseas application. And for US nurses, the academic module is perhaps the best choice for you. So just so you know, if you're applying to the US as a nurse, you have to take the IELTS academic module. But how about the TOEFL? Do we also have test modules for the TOEFL, Sirlo?
Yeah, we also have what we call the TOEFL Essentials, but that's mostly for student visa applicants. If you want to become a nurse in the US, you want to take the TOEFL IBT, also known as the internet-based version of the exam.
Right. And of course, one of the major considerations of candidates who are taking English exams is how much is the test? So here in the Philippines, actually IELTS is priced 12,720 or 750 pesos. So it's not really as expensive as other English exams, but of course, being a high stakes English exam, it is already kind of expensive. But I believe for TOEFL, how much is the test right now, Sir Loan?
Well, the creator of the exam ETS gives away vouchers every now and then on their Facebook
Hmm.
page. And if you're fortunate enough to get a hand or secure one of these vouchers, you can take the test for as low as 225 US dollars. But in the Philippines, the price of the exam is actually 250 US dollars. And I guess the problem with the TOEFL, I guess this is the problem with a lot of English exams, their price changes depending on your location. So please take note that the price that you're seeing on the screen right now, this only applies to the Philippines. And if you're going to take the exam somewhere else, then it's possible that you're getting it at a different rate.
Certainly. And so you know that these exams are kind of expensive, so you need to prepare for them. Thankfully, AMN International is in partnership with 9.09 in providing for you test preparation for either your IELTS or TOEFL exam. Okay. Now, by the way, this is a live session, so if you have any questions whatsoever, you can drop us a line or two down the comment section, and we'll be more than happy to answer your questions as we discuss. Okay, now let's talk about the score ranges, right? So for IELTS, the score ranges between 0 and 9.0 with half band scores in between. So for example, you can get a 7 or you can get a 6.5. And for US visa screen purposes, usually the requirement for this is a 7 in the speaking component and a 6.5 overall band score, notwithstanding what score you will get for the listening and reading components. Do note that you get individual band scores and you get also an overall band score, which you will compare against the requirements of your Board of Nursing or perhaps the US visa screen. How about for TOEFL, Sir Lone? What are the score ranges?
Well, for each section of the test, the lowest possible score is 0, and then the highest possible score is 30. So in other words, you're being graded on a 30 band scale. But unlike the IELTS, where your score from all four sections will be combined and then they're going to get the average of it for your overall band score, with the TOEFL, they're going to combine all your scores from each section. So let's say you're as good as Sir Brian and you get a perfect score. In each section of the TOEFL, you get a 30 in listening, 30 in reading, 30 in speaking, and 30 in writing. That means your total score will be 120. That's the perfect TOEFL score. And then obviously the lowest score will be 0.
Thank you, Sir Lone, for the clarification. Now, I guess probably the primary consideration for most of you guys who are planning to take an English examination is there one close to you? And this is probably where IELTS is winning, because IELTS is probably every place, no matter where you are in the world, there's certainly a test location close to you, or a test venue. Here in the Philippines, in almost all of the regions of the country, we have test venues for the IELTS. So if you're taking the exam in the Philippines, there are plenty of options where you can take either the IELTS on paper or IELTS on computer version of the test. But I guess that's not the situation for TOEFL. Sir Lone, can you explain to our audience what the possible test locations are for TOEFL?
Yeah, unfortunately, you're right. Even if people want to take the TOEFL IBT, there are limited testing centers around the world. In the Philippines alone, we only have a test center in Las Piñas right now and Makati for Metro Manila. There's one in the Laguna area, there's one in Davao, and then there's one in Cebu. So if you're going to take the TOEFL, you need to keep this in mind, because no matter your desire to take it, if the test is not accessible to you, then you're better off with the IELTS.
Yeah, that's correct. But I also understand that there are some particular states in the U.S. in which the TOEFL is strictly required. Is that correct, Sir
Yes.
Sir Don?
Yeah, a prominent state would be Nevada. So if you're going to become a nurse in Nevada, you definitely have to plan around the fact that there are limited testing centers in our country. So some people that studied with us, what they do is they get a mock accommodation close to the testing center just to make their American dream come true.
Yeah, there should be some sacrifices here and there.
Yeah,
So let's
yeah,
talk about the
definitely.
duration. The duration of the examination. This is where TOEFL is winning, actually, because the IELTS is for 3 hours, and it's not just for 3 hours, because 3 hours will be your written exams. That's for listening, reading, and writing, and you still have a separate speaking test, which is going to last for right about 11 to 15 minutes. However, the case is when you're taking the examination, particularly the IELTS on computer edition of the examination, you're going to take your written exams in the morning, and you still have to wait for your speaking examination maybe in the afternoon, something like that. So sometimes your schedule is at 2 or 3 p.m. and you're done already with the written exams at 12. So you will probably have a very full day taking the IELTS. But this is not the case when you're taking the TOEFL. Is that right, Sir Lone?
Yeah. So just to add to what you said, I think a disadvantage of taking the IELTS is if you don't have a lot of endurance. By the time you get to the writing
True.
section, you're, you're already out of breath. So you may find it difficult to actually start writing an essay. From my experience, when I took the IELTS, when I got to the writing section, I'm already hungry. So it's really hard to complete the tasks that
True.
are given to you. In the TOEFL, you wouldn't have that problem. The good thing about the TOEFL is in July 2023, they decided to make the test shorter. Now, why are they doing it or why they did it? It's not really clear, but perhaps to compete with IELTS, which is, of course, the most popular English exam in the world right now. And because of its length, there are people that definitely consider taking the TOEFL over other English exams. I believe
Mhm.
it's even shorter than the PTE now, because the
Yeah.
Pearson test of English lasts for roughly 2 hours, or maybe 2 hours and a few minutes
Mhm.
more. But with the TOEFL, you can complete the entire exam for 1.8 hours or 1.9 hours, which is definitely something you look forward to after weeks of preparing for such a high stakes exam.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, so for those people who would want to take a shorter exam, of course, the TOEFL is a great option for you guys.
It's
But
very
let's talk
applicable.
about the sections. The sections are not so different from each other, but I believe the order by which the examination sections will be administered is a little different. Now, in the Philippines, when you're taking the IELTS, you will take first either the written exams or the speaking test. So, listening, reading, and writing will go together, and you have a separate speaking exam either before or after the exam. But for TOEFL, I believe it's just a single session. Is that right?
Yeah, and even though it's shorter, this is what turns people away sometimes from the TOEFL, because at least with the IELTS, you get a breather before you take your
Uh-huh.
speaking test. And for a lot of nurses, the speaking section of their exam is the most important, because if you want to become a nurse in the US, you need to get at least 7 in the IELTS speaking section. And for the TOEFL, you need to get 24 or 26. Whereas most of the time, the other parts of the test don't really matter. That's not to say that you don't prepare for them, but your score for individual sections are not as important as how you will perform in the speaking section of your exam. And that is why TOEFL speaking can be problematic,
Mm-hmm.
because by the time you get there, you already spent a lot of your energy on the reading and listening section. And
Mm-hmm.
the most important part of the test, you normally want to be fresh, but that's not going to happen here.
What do you think is the most difficult test in the TOEFL, Sir Lone?
Having taken both the IELTS and the TOEFL, I would say it's actually reading. And
Mm,
if you take into account that you're starting with the hardest part of the test, you
yeah.
already are exhausted by the time you get to speaking and writing. Although both
That's
the IELTS and the TOEFL, I think we're going to talk about their reading sections later. I can tell our viewers more about why I find it more difficult than the IELTS.
Mhm. Yeah, for IELTS, well, the most notorious examination is writing, and that
Definitely.
can be attributed to a lot of factors as well. We're going to talk about that in a bit. Now, this is something that is very competitive right now. This particular parameter, the results release, because apparently, there are other exams in which you can get your test results in 24 hours. So it seems as if
Yeah.
everyone is racing after the 24-hour time interval when you receive your results. And so, just recently, the IELTS has actually shortened, particularly under the British Council Philippines, the release of your results into just 1 to 5 days for IELTS on computer. But if you're taking the IELTS on paper exam, you still have to wait 13 calendar days to get your test results. How about for TOEFL, Sir Lone?
Unfortunately, for this particular parameter, TOEFL is losing the arms race. This arms race for who gets to release test results faster. It's no secret for our viewers who follow AMN Healthcare that Pearson is really notorious for releasing test results in just a matter of 24 hours. And I think IELTS is
Mhm.
trying to adjust to that standard, but the TOEFL is still
Yes.
lagging behind. The earliest that you're going to get your TOEFL results is 4 days after your test date. So let's pretend that you took your exam on September 20. The earliest release of your test results will be September 24.
Mhm. Right. Now, I understand that both of these exams are accepted in the US, and that's the great news for all of you guys. So, whether you're taking the IELTS or the TOEFL, you're safe because you can use your test result for your US visa application. However, if we're talking about the global scale, like if all of the countries accept, say, for example, TOEFL or the IELTS, I believe that the IELTS is right now the most recognized English examination worldwide. So if you're looking at an examination you could use for a variety of purposes, if you're not really 100% bent on going to the US, then the IELTS is a good option. But since TOEFL is an American product, it is also accepted in the US. Is that right, Sir Lo?
Yeah, in fact, it's widely accepted in the US at the same level as the IELTS. But as you've mentioned, while the IELTS is widely accepted in other countries, the TOEFL does not enjoy that same reputation. For example,
Mm-mm.
I don't think there's a lot of institutions in Ireland and the UK that accept the TOEFL
Mm.
other than student visa purposes. It's slowly becoming more accepted in Australia and New Zealand, but the same thing can be said with Canada in terms of very
Mhm.
limited acceptance of the TOEFL IBT.
But the good news is most of our viewers here are going to the US, so either one of
Yes,
these exams will be perfect for you, certainly. If you want to
definitely.
fulfill your American dream, I mean, either IELTS or TOEFL would be a perfect fit for you guys. All right, now let's talk about another parameter right here, which is the test delivery. So IELTS is still a little bit traditional, in which probably right now it is the only examination that still has regular paper delivered exams being administered to candidates, but we also have the IELTS on computer version, which I have talked about a while ago. And there's several advantages in taking the computer delivered exam, including a faster turnaround time for your test results. But for TOEFL, I believe TOEFL IBT is still taken using a computer. Is that correct, Sir Lo?
Yeah, they have to stay faithful to their name. IBT means internet-based test. They did try to offer a paper-delivered version of this, I believe, in the early part
Mhm.
of 2023, but then they ditched it altogether, maybe because of very low demand. And unlike the IELTS, since we're talking about computer delivered, the IELTS offers one skill retake, which is a very big advantage to test takers, particularly if you struggle with just one section of
Mhm.
the exam. You have the option to just retake that one section alone, and the price of the test wouldn't be as costly compared to taking the entire test again. Unfortunately for the TOEFL, that option is not available. If you don't get
Mhm.
a good score in one section of the exam, you have to sit the test all over again. You have to go through reading, listening, speaking, and writing. But the good news with the TOEFL, it offers my best scores. It automatically combines your highest scores in all versions of the exam that you have taken, provided that these versions are still valid. So that's, I guess, the good news with that. But from a financial perspective, the IELTS wins again because of, again, one skill retake.
Mhm. Yeah, but I think this is where IELTS might not be a perfect fit for some of our candidates right here, especially those candidates who are a little scared or anxious when they're facing another person, because IELTS will always have an interview for the speaking examination. And
That's right.
right now, for the IELTS on computer version, it's going to be delivered via Zoom. So there's no escaping your examiner. You will still be talking to a real, alive examiner when you're taking the IELTS. You're not just going to record your answers onto the computer and then your examiners will grade later on. You will have to face your examiner. So, yes, you have to face your fears when you're taking the IELTS. Whereas when you're taking the TOEFL, Sir Lone, what do you think about the speaking test of the TOEFL?
I agree with you. If you're not comfortable talking to someone in English, the IELTS can be quite intimidating. Maintaining eye contact can be problematic. You mentioned doing it via Zoom, and sometimes you don't know where to look. Am I going to look at the camera? Am I going to look at the screen? But with the TOEFL,
True.
this problem does not exist because with the TOEFL, you're just going to record your answers using a microphone. You don't need to maintain eye contact or build rapport with anyone. Basically, body language is not a factor in this exam. You just need to focus on answering questions. And if you're the type of person that doesn't like to face another individual while speaking, then the TOEFL is definitely for you.
Mhm. Yeah. Because we have probably some people here who are frightened to death talking to another
Yeah,
person, especially a native English speaker. So that's where TOEFL will definitely have a great advantage for you guys. And
true.
I mean, I don't need to explain this anymore, guys, because we have been talking about this for some time. It is actually accepted for US visa screen, like the IELTS as well as the TOEFL are both accepted for US visa screen. So regardless of the test, it's okay, right? But let's talk
Yeah,
about the validity of the test results. I mean, IELTS is only valid for 2 years. Is it also the same for the TOEFL?
yeah. I guess in this department, all English exams pale in comparison to the Michigan English test, which lasts forever. The validity is for life. So just like the IELTS, the TOEFL is only valid for 2 years.
Yeah, that's correct. So you guys need to understand that when you're taking your English examination, you have to make sure that you have a purposeful use for it. If your application is not going to move yet, or you don't have your work experience yet, you haven't passed your NCLEX yet, or perhaps you don't have your priority date yet, then um, you might want to postpone retaking your exam or taking your examination, because your test will only be valid for 2 years. You have to understand that there are a lot of processes involved, and if there's a delay in your application processing, then you will need to take these exams again, a
Yeah.
second or a third time even, because they will expire in a matter of 2 years. Okay, now let's jump right into the next parameter, which would be the accents. This is actually where a lot of people would complain about the IELTS, because the IELTS has so many different accents used. I can recall when I took the examination, I was expecting all of those three major English accents: the American accent, the British accent, and the Australian accent. But lo and behold, when I got to part two of the listening examination, I was hearing the African accent. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, one moment, I didn't prepare for this. Because regional accents are actually also represented when you're taking
Yeah.
the IELTS. So
True.
you can hear a South Asian accent or a Southeast Asian accent. You can hear an Oriental accent. You can also
Yeah.
hear African accents, Middle Eastern accents. They're actually represented when you're taking the IELTS. So you have to prepare for so many different accents, and you should know how to recognize all of these accents when you're taking an examination, or when you're taking IELTS in general. But how about TOEFL? Is it the same, Sir Lo?
Well, thankfully, we don't have that problem in the TOEFL, especially for
Yes.
people who grew up in the Philippines, because we're such big fans of American culture, right? A lot of us, we grew up watching Hollywood films, Disney cartoon
Hmm.
shows, and because of that, we can easily understand the speakers in the TOEFL IBT because all of them are using a North American accent. So, for the sake of those who are not familiar with that term, or for those who are a little bit confused, what's the North American accent? It's the accent that speakers have in the United States and in Canada. And because people in the Philippines are so used to Marvel movies and anything that Hollywood produces, understanding speakers in this part of the exam should be easy.
Yeah, that's correct. So that's one of the advantages. So if you're accustomed to just listening to the American accent or the North American accent, then you obviously would have an advantage when you're taking the TOEFL. Okay, now let's talk about the mode of registration. Um, by the way, before I jump right into this, I would just want to inform all of our viewers from the Philippines that 9.09er is actually a test venue for the IELTS under the British Council.
Yes.
And yeah, right? Amazing, right? So we also process your application for the IELTS. So you can inquire at the center by emailing exams@nineronlinereview.com. Let me just repeat that. That's exams@nineronlinereview.com, so that we can help you get your examination process or booked for you. So you don't have to go through the hassle of filling out the forms and all that. You just have to pay us, and then we're going to be taking care of the processing. And not only that, we offer discounts for your exam booking. Yes, you don't really get a lot of discounts from these tests, but
Yes.
9.09er is offering IELTS discount. So if you're booking your IELTS with us, you can get a discounted rate as well. All right. So let's talk about the mode of registration. For IELTS, it could be online, or you can also register at the center or through the agents like 9.09er. But for TOEFL, Sir Loan, how do you register for the test?
Well, you can only do it through the ETS website. You're going to create your ETS account and you're just going to fill out all the necessary fields and, of course, pay the test fee in order to register for the exam. I just also want to add, so again, this is another thing that's going for the IELTS. So we mentioned that 9.09er is an agent of the IELTS, right? You
Mhm.
can even go to our branches to register for the test. Our office staff will be more than happy to assist you. For example, you live in the Makati area, you can go to 9.09er Makati. Let's face it, some of us are not really technologically adept. If you're not comfortable
That's true.
registering for the test online, you're really old school. You can talk to the people at Niner Makati if you're living in the southern part of Metro Manila to get their help to book you for a test, maybe you're living in the northern part of Luzon, you can talk to someone from Niner Baguio to help you with that. So Niner branches, they have people that will assist you with registering for your test if you're not comfortable doing it at home. So I guess that's
Mm-hmm.
another advantage of the IELTS. Whereas we're
Mm-hmm.
still working, I think, Sir Brian, right? We're still working at
Hopefully,
becoming
yeah.
an authorized, yeah, TOEFL testing center.
Yeah.
We're already an authorized TOEIC testing center. So
Mhm.
TOEIC is another product of ETS, maker of the TOEFL IBT. So we're very hopeful that maybe in the future we can become an authorized testing center for TOEFL as well.
We'll work towards that certainly, and of course, this has been already mentioned a while ago by Sir Loan. One skill retake
Agree,
is
fine.
available for IELTS. However, you have to take the IELTS on computer to enjoy this advantage of taking a one skill retake test. It means that you're going to take only one of the components of the examination to help you to lift the grade for that component and get the different test result. But again, this is only available when you're taking IELTS on computer. You cannot have one skill retake when you're taking IELTS on paper. Okay, right. Um, Now let's talk about test frequency. Here in the Philippines, IELTS is actually in high demand, and that's why we
Yeah.
have test schedules almost every day. Actually, in the Philippines, you can book your examination from Monday to Sunday, and maybe at least 4 days ahead of your examination, there will still be a slot for you to sit the exams. But how about for TOEFL? Is it also the same, Sir Loan?
That used to be the case, but perhaps due to the rise of other English exams, the test is not conducted as often as it used to. In October alone, they're only going to conduct it for 4 Saturdays. So
Hmm.
if you're available on Saturdays, then definitely the TOEFL is a good option. But if you can only take exams on other days of the week, then it's best to consider other English exams that are offered in our country.
Yeah, so the implication of that as well is that you have to be prepared when you're taking the TOEFL or even the IELTS. You don't want to waste your money. But the thing
Yeah,
here is, if you're taking the IELTS and say, for example, knock on wood, you didn't get your test requirement, your results aren't hitting the target, you can actually book your examination right away and you can take the examination 4 days after. But if it's the TOEFL, then you will have to wait until the next exam date. And it's not as frequent as the IELTS. Although I would have to say that there are actually exams that are even less frequent than the TOEFL. Like,
oh,
four
yeah.
times a month is actually pretty good already. Like the OET is only administered once or twice every month. So certainly 4 times is not really a bad figure. Okay, now it's time for us to talk about the different subtests of the exams. So, this part is actually where we're going to probably be able to figure out what these exams are going to be. Like, this is also going to help you to kind of determine which examination is perfect for you, because no matter how I say that IELTS is good or TOEFL is good, it's all up to you, because some people do not resonate well with the test format of one exam or might actually do better with another test format. So we're going to find out right now the differences between the four different subtests of the IELTS and the TOEFL. Okay, so if you're ready, we're ready. Let's start with the listening test. Okay, so I'll go first, Sir Lone.
Go
The,
ahead,
the,
sir.
the IELTS is a very straightforward listening test. You're going to listen to recordings. You will have to answer questions on what you hear. There will be 40 questions for you to answer, and they could be multiple types of questions like multiple choice, fill in the gaps, or gap fill. We also have note completion, table completion. Sometimes you have diagrams or maps that you'll have to identify the correct locations for. But it's a variety of different types of questions. You have 40 items to answer. And when you're taking the IELTS, you don't really have to spend so much time working on the listening test because it's just going to run for 30 minutes. It's probably the shortest examination on the IELTS. Written exams for the IELTS, of course, speaking is the shortest, but it's relatively shorter compared to the reading and the writing tests. Now, when you're taking IELTS on computer, you have 2 minutes checking time, But when you're taking IELTS on paper, you have 10 minutes to transfer your answers to an answer sheet. Um, Problem is, when you're taking IELTS on paper, there is a chance, although the chances are rare right now, like low, that you might actually take an examination in which you're going to listen to the recordings through speakers. Whereas when you're taking IELTS on computer, 100% of the time you're going to be wearing headsets while you're listening to the recordings. So that's one of the advantages of taking IELTS on computer. Now, Sir Lone is going to walk us through the process of taking the listening test for TOEFL.
Just before that, I just want to say what the first two sentences that Sir Brian said when he was talking about the listening test. Those are the exact sentences you will hear when the test begins. So that speaks volumes on how knowledgeable he is on the IELTS exam. But anyway, um, I do agree
Or
with you,
maybe how
Moss, on
long
the
I've been
speaker.
teaching this. Like how
Yeah,
old I am, maybe.
your words, not mine. But anyway, going back to that speaker part, yeah, I do agree with Sir Brian. That can be a problem for some test takers. That's why computer delivered exams are a thing, especially with the TOEFL IBT. It's very similar to the IELTS in the sense that you're going to be using earphones. So, and you're also in control. I think with the IELTS on computer, you have a feature in the software that allows you to adjust volume controls. And that's the same thing with the TOEFL IBT. But if you take a paper delivered exam, you don't get to tell the proctors, can you change the volume of the speaker? No, you're not allowed to do that.
True.
They're not going to change the volume
Mm-mm.
for one person. And having taken the IELTS, Sir Brian is right that it can be a problem that you have to worry about different accents. But unlike the IELTS, where you can see the questions while the recording is being played, the problem with the TOEFL IBT, you will hear the recordings before you can see the questions. So if note taking is important in the IELTS, it's much more important in the TOEFL IBT because you don't know the answers to the questions because you're getting the answers first before you can see the questions. And there's really no way of identifying what you're supposed to take note of. So might as well just take note of as much information as you can. The TOEFL listening section is a little bit longer than its IELTS counterpart. So like Sir Brian said, you have 30 minutes to complete the IELTS listening section. But for the TOEFL IBT, you're going to spend about 36 minutes completing this part of the exam. And during that time, you're going to listen to three lectures and two conversations for a total of I think 28 questions. And unlike the IELTS where you have sometimes the option to go back and forth between questions, with the TOEFL IBT, once you press the next button, it's bye bye. You can't see that question anymore. If you locked in the wrong answer, that's it.
Yeah.
You're done. You can't take it back.
Yeah.
And I think another thing that we must take into account when we're taking the TOEFL IBT, at least with the TOEFL IBT, all the questions are in multiple choice format because
Mm.
like Sir Brian said, with the IELTS, there are different question types. Sometimes grammar plays a factor in your success, especially for questions where there are missing words and you have to supply the word to the sentence. You don't have to worry about that in the TOEFL IBT listening exam.
Mhm. Yeah, and carelessness as well, because
Yeah.
sometimes the answer is correct, but when you try to fit it into the blank, just doesn't make sense, and your answer will be
Oh
marked
yeah.
incorrect. Unlike in the TOEFL, is just basically
Yeah. Just pick.
multiple
Yeah.
choice. Right? And if
Yeah.
you don't know the spelling of the words, can you imagine? Right,
Yeah.
you're definitely going
That's
to get
quite
mixed up.
problematic.
Yes. Oh, we have a question here from Jordy. Good afternoon from Qatar, everyone. Mr. Brian, do you teach also PTE? Yes, I do. In fact, I have a lecture for PTE tomorrow.
You should
Right?
attend that.
So if you're enrolled in one of our programs, then you'll be seeing me every Tuesdays as I teach IELTS, OET, and PTE every Tuesdays. Okay. Right. Now let's jump right into. So we're done with the listening examination. Let's jump right into the reading test. The dreaded reading test, not only for TOEFL, but also for IELTS. Reading right now is the second hardest exam on the IELTS for Filipino test takers. Don't you know that? It's actually already one of the toughest exams that you will encounter when you take the IELTS. The reading examination, however, is so familiar to most of you guys because I am very certain you have had something like this before when you were younger. It is just a reading comprehension test. You will be given passages to read and you will have to answer questions on those passages. And basically, you just have a lot of different questions here that might be different from what you have encountered before. For example, for IELTS, the dreaded true false not given or identifying the writer's views can be extremely difficult and tricky. We also have matching headings to paragraphs, which you can only find when you're taking the IELTS. But generally, this examination is objective, so you get all of the answers from the passage. You don't need to think of what the interpretation of the passage would be because all of the answers can be located in the passage. There's absolutely no answer you can find outside the passage. You just have to
Yeah.
hunt for the correct answers. But one of the most problematic aspects of the IELTS is that it has a short time limit for 1 hour only, and you have 40 questions to answer. And can you imagine you have almost 3,000 words to read, 2,700 words on average, and you have only 1 hour for everything: reading the questions, reading the passages, answering the questions while you're reading the passages, and for IELTS on paper, even transferring your answers to an answer sheet, which can actually consume most of your time. So, this is one that you'll have to really work on, prepare for, because there's a great majority of candidates who don't even get to finish the IELTS reading examination. And right now, it is our second worst exam in the Philippines. Um, but it's not an isolated case because we're not only talking about reading being hard for IELTS. I think it's also hard for other English exams, such as the
True.
TOEFL. Right. So, can you describe to us how difficult the TOEFL reading exam is, Erlon?
It's deceptively difficult because on paper it looks like it's easier than the IELTS because you only spend 35 minutes completing the TOEFL reading section. Like Sir Brian said, you're going to spend 1 hour on the IELTS exam. So if we're going to base it on duration alone, all you'll end up thinking, oh, maybe the TOEFL reading test is easier, and you don't have to read as many words because there are only two passages in the TOEFL, and there's only a total of 20 questions. But I guess what I think, and this is from a subjective standpoint, not really objective, but I think what makes IELTS reading easier is how you prepare for listening can be quite similar to the reading section of the IELTS because they have similar questions. And how you approach them, there are some similarities. The problem with TOEFL listening and reading, they have totally different question types. So the skills that you use to find answers in the listening section for TOEFL, it's not gonna be that effective in the reading section. And on top of that, when it comes to the IELTS, from my experience at least, there's at least one passage that's very easy to understand. It's possibly taken from a newspaper or magazine. But with the TOEFL IBT, it feels like you're reading always from a college textbook, and the vocabulary is a little bit challenging compared to the IELTS. And with the IELTS, you have the ability to, again, go back and forth questions. Let's say for some strange reason, you found the last passage of the IELTS easier compared to the first one, and you're able to answer all the questions in the last passage faster. With the TOEFL, you need to finish the questions in the first passage, but once you're done with it, there's no going back to it. You lose access to the first passage and its questions, and now you're stuck with the second passage and its questions. But similar to listening, yeah, you don't have to worry about spelling, you don't have to worry about grammar, you don't have to complete sentences. All the questions are multiple choice. And I think unlike the IELTS where you really have to find the paragraph that contains the answer, at least the TOEFL spoon feeds you. They point at the paragraph like, here, this is the paragraph where you find the answer. So I guess that's a redeeming quality of the TOEFL reading exam.
Hmm. Yeah. Right. I think the IELTS reading examination has more question types, and it makes the
Yeah,
examination a bit more complicated to prepare for. Right. And well, we're talking about the reading exam being hard, but you don't have to worry because when you're going to the US, I mean, reading is not really a component that you'll have to get an individual score in
yeah,
particular,
agree.
because you just have to focus more on the speaking test and the overall bands, at least for these two exams, because in other English exams, um, you have to get individual scores for everything, like for listening, reading, writing, and speaking for the US visa screen. Particularly, for example, for OET, since they don't have an overall score, you will have
Yeah.
to get individual bands for each one of the four components of the test. But for IELTS and TOEFL, the fun part is you just have to focus on the speaking test and the overall, and you're good to go. All right, now let's talk about the writing test. Okay, we have a question here from Rang. I can't access my dashboard. It's fine. If you're having problems, you can always email training at nineronlinereview.com or info at nineronlinereview.com. If you're having access problems, you can just send us a message and we'll reset your login credentials. Here's another one from Inva. Hello, I'm an international student who just graduated from nursing school as an RN. I'm looking for visa sponsorship in Florida. You've come to the right place because AMN Healthcare International can help you fulfill your American dreams. You just send them a message. They're very responsive. If you are qualified, they're going to tell you they can do some assessments when it comes to your credentials, and they're going to help you to get your applications started. Okay, so you can email your you can go to their website amnhealthcare.com /international, and you can kickstart your overseas journey to the US. Okay, so now let's start with the writing examination for IELTS, the dreaded writing examination. A lot of people complain about the IELTS writing examination, and for good reason. Number one, for the writing task one component, I'm going to talk about the academic module only because most of you guys are going to the US. You're going to write a statistical or process report. You will be provided an illustration, a figure, or a graph that you will have to describe in 150 words, whereas your writing task two is going to be an essay writing test. And for writing task one, it's going to require you to write 150 words. For writing task two, you have to write 250 words within 1 hour, all in all. That's for both tasks. And I feel like that's too short for roughly 400 words or over. And a lot of people do not accomplish the exam. In fact, statistics would show that at least 20% of the total test taker population does not finish the IELTS writing examination. And this is one of the reasons that a lot of candidates don't get a good score on the writing examination of the IELTS. Also, what I think is difficult about the writing test is that you have to study for so many things, because you can be given a topic that is totally unfamiliar to you, or you're completely oblivious
Mhm.
about, and you don't know what to write. Like, you can't produce any 250 word writing response for that, since you don't even know the topic. So you have to prepare for not only the writing part but also the content side, because it is graded in the IELTS. So when you're taking the IELTS writing examination, one of the components you'll be graded for is task response or task attainment, which means that you're able to answer the question. But what if you don't have an answer to the question? Your language is good, you have an extremely polished English capability, but unfortunately you don't know the question and you don't know the answer to the question. So you're going to definitely have a difficult time passing the examination. So this is something that you'll have to prepare for. And that's why usually the preparation time for IELTS is longer than most other English exams, because you don't just have to rehearse for the format or the manner by which you're going to write. You don't just need to prepare for the examination from the English perspective only. You also have to study the questions and the possible topics that might come out in the test. But for TOEFL, I assume it's easier, is it not?
Yeah, definitely. When I saw the writing
Definitely.
exam for TOEFL,
Yes.
for someone who took the IELTS, I said, wow, this is a walk in the park. I mean, with the IELTS, especially for task one, there's some math involved sometimes. If you're unfortunate enough to get a line graph or a pie chart, but with the TOEFL, you're just going to read a passage and then you're going to listen to a lecture related to the topic of the passage. And you just have to summarize the content of both of these sources and establish their connections with one another. You just need to write 150 words for your summary, and you have to finish it in 20 minutes, which I still agree that it's not a lot of time, but that's why you prepare. That's why you prepare. And again, all the answers are right there. You just have to paraphrase it. Unlike the IELTS, where you really have to not only come up with words, but you really need to be familiar with the question. And then for The second task, they changed it. So as I've mentioned, there were changes in July. Originally, the second task of the TOEFL writing section is very similar to the second writing task of the IELTS, but then they changed it to what they call now as the writing for an academic discussion task. It's a mouthful, but you're only given 10 minutes to finish it. But the good news, you just need to write 100 words. You're going to contribute to an online discussion. If you're so used to commenting on Facebook, that test is for you.
Exactly.
So that's it. You just have to like comment. If you love getting involved in all the drama that we have in our country, if you like to
True.
give your opinion on politics, it's no different. You just have to write your response on whatever they stated. There's going to be two people there that posted their comments, and then you have to react whether you like what they
Yeah,
said or not.
correct. Yeah, so that in itself is much easier in comparison to the
And it's
IELTS.
fun, Sir Brian.
Definitely.
It's fun. I'm telling you,
It
it's fun.
is. Yeah, like when I'm looking at the test form, I'm like, "Oh, this is it." Like,
Yes.
it's very fun. You don't really have to think about globalization or
Yeah.
biotechnology, genetic engineering, all of those
Yes.
things. You'll just have to comment. Yeah,
Climate
it's
change.
true.
Don't have to worry about climate change.
True. Okay. Anyway, let's jump into the speaking test, which is probably one of the harder exams in the IELTS, but I feel it's a very enjoyable exam if you're the kind of person who interacts better with people. Like you perform well, you speak well, and you interact better when you're in front of another person because it's going to be an interview lasting only for 11 to 14 minutes. It's closer to a conversation than it is to an interview, in my honest opinion, because the questions are very personal, especially in the first part of the test. And then in the second part of the exam, you're going to deliver a speech about a particular topic. And then in the third part, that's probably the one that's a little academic, and the questions are going to be a bit more abstract or conceptual, a lot harder compared to what you get in part one of the test. And then you're good to go. You're done. The test is going to last 11 to 14 minutes. And no matter your performance level in the exam, the test will last only for 11 to 14 minutes. It can't be any longer, not because you're really good in English and the examiner's enjoying what you're saying. They're going to extend your speaking exam. They're just going to cut it at the 14th minute, and then they're going to end the entire thing and give you your score. Right. I don't know if it's fun for some people because some people get really scared when they look at the examiner. So this is something that you'll have to train for. And fortunately, at 9.09er, we have coaching, which enables you to kind of simulate the process of taking the examination and get you more familiar with the process, so that when you take the examination, you will feel that it's rather familiar, and you will also feel comfortable and confident taking the test because you have done it so many times during your coaching session. So, yeah, what are you waiting for? Enroll at 9.09er. And the AMN Healthcare International actually sponsors your IELTS review or your TOEFL review. All you need to do is to message them, send them your application, and they're going to get you endorsed to the English department so that you can take advantage of the preparation programs that we offer at 9.09er without the charge. So that's so exciting, right? Now, how about the TOEFL speaking test?
I do agree about the part that we can have mixed reactions about the IELTS speaking test. There are people who enjoy it. I personally enjoyed my IELTS speaking test because I like talking to people in person. And at first, I really didn't like the setup of the TOEFL. It feels weird talking to a microphone. It's like, am I a crazy person? Why am I speaking by myself? But I can certainly understand why it's appealing to others because unlike the IELTS where you have to answer questions spontaneously all the time, even for speaking part two where you're given that brief moment of preparation, it feels in comparison to speaking part one and part three where you really have to talk automatically. In the TOEFL, for every question, you're given the chance to prepare. So that's the good thing about it. And then not all the questions, actually, majority of the questions, you have references to your answers. You're going to read a passage, you're going to listen to a recording, and that will serve as the basis for what you will say. Unlike in the IELTS where you really have to think on the fly, you really have to dig deep into your personal experiences and knowledge to respond to questions. But in the IELTS, you have the freedom to talk for as long as you want, and examiners will cut you off. It's not going to have a negative impact on your score. With the TOEFL, you have to be good at managing your time because you can only speak for a specific time frame. You don't want to speak beyond the given time because your answer will not matter after the recording has been cut off. And as Sir Brian mentioned, I do agree, of course, that coaching is important. It gives you the confidence to answer questions ahead of time. We offer face to face lectures for English exams. So if you're getting a little bit, you know, let's say, I don't want to say this, but the reality is some people get bored with online learning if it's done for a prolonged period. If you want to mix things up a bit, we invite you to visit our branches. So 9.09er Makati has a lot of face-to-face lectures for various English exams. We do the same thing in Quezon City and other branches of Niner nationwide. We would love to see you in person. You know, you want to take a picture with Sir Brian, go to Makati. I'm promising you, he's there for the most part. So why not go there? It's very accessible to public transport.
Yeah, because not everyone would learn online, so that's one of the
Not for
advantages of
everyone.
training in our centers. And yeah, 9.09er has a lot of branches nationwide that you can visit, so that our coaches can also help you in acing your English exams, right? And I think that only leads us to one conclusion: these English exams are high stakes for a couple of reasons. One,
Yes.
they're expensive, and they can change your life. And number two, you need to prepare for them. No matter what English examination you're taking, being good at English is not sufficient for you to clear these exams. Like, I could be very competent in the use of the language and not clear my IELTS or my TOEFL, because there are a lot of things that you have to consider when you're taking these exams, including your preparedness, your familiarity of the test questions, your strategy, and a lot of other factors that you will definitely need to build in you, so that when you take the examination, it wouldn't be as challenging and as difficult as they are. Okay. So we invite you to review or prepare with 9.09er English Review and Tutorial Center in partnership with AMN Healthcare International. Get registered, and then they're going to endorse you to us so that we can kickstart your journey towards passing your English exam. So, be it IELTS or TOEFL, we have the right programs for you. Sir Lone teaches TOEFL right here. I teach IELTS. Okay, so guys, if you want to see more of us, then of course, register with AMN and or enroll at 9.09. Thank you so much for this great opportunity, AMN Healthcare International. I'm just going to look at the questions for now. Do you have any final words, Sir Lone, and probably words of inspiration for our audience who are about to embark on a new journey towards, fulfilling their American dreams?
I'm just going to copy and paste what Sir Irvin says. Great things are never easy. Easy things are never great. We know that what you're going to do entails sacrifice. It's going to make you spend less time on fun things, but the payoff is definitely rewarding. You're not going to prepare for these exams forever, so just hang on to your seats. Let 9.09er take you on this journey until you get to the point where you're able to get your desired test results and you can finally live your American dream. All right.
Wow, I really love that message. And guys, yeah, I really appreciate your attendance. I can't see how many of you guys watched our live, because I am not on Facebook right now. But thank you so much, especially those people who invited their friends, who tagged their friends, who shared this live, and also those people who interacted by asking questions or writing a comment. We really appreciate you guys. And of course, thank you so much to Amen Healthcare International for always hosting our free webinars here at 9.09er. Thank you so much. And again, to kickstart your application, just go to amnhealthcare.com/international. Thank you so much. This is Sir Brian, and
Marlon, thank you so much for watching us.
have a great day, guys. Bye.
Bye.